Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome back to Wobble and Jaw Sports. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. Let's look at the Sydney Roosters fixture for 2024. Round 1 for the pre-season challenge starts at Gosford. They are taking on the Manly Sea Eagles. Maybe the likes of a Daly Cherry Evans or a Tommy Turbo, maybe even the likes of I don't know, a James Tedesco could even participate in this week 1 fixture in the preseason challenge, because they'll hop in straight on the plane pretty much the next day to go play in Las Vegas, both of these sides. And speaking of the other Las Vegas team, in week 2 of the preseason challenge, they are taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs in what will be a New South Wales Cup level game of footy. The first 5 weeks for 2024 for the Eastern Suburbs starts like this. In round number 1, they are one of the 4 teams to play in Las Vegas. They kick off against the Brisbane Broncos at 2:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, and technically they are the home side in that game. Round number 2 comes around in 2 weeks' time for the Eastern Suburbs, and they are taking on the Manly Sea Eagles at 4 Pines Park on Sunday afternoon footy. Again, I've said it a couple of times already, but I really like how the NRL have chosen to have the Las Vegas sides play each other inside the first 2 or 3 weeks to keep things just that little bit more fair. In round number 3, though, all bets are off. They are taking on their arch nemesis in the South Sydney Rabbitohs in the first Allianz Stadium game for 2024. Roosters Souths on Friday night footy, and that is a short turnaround for the Eastern Suburbs, only a 5-day turnaround. Round number 4, they host the Penrith Panthers again at Allianz Stadium, Thursday night footy. To round out their first section of 2024, they have a away trip to Accor Stadium against the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs on Friday night footy. The strength of opposition, it is high. It is tougher than a couple that I've seen, save for the fact that the Dogs are in there, and mind you, the Manly Sea Eagles did not finish inside the top 8 as well. But overall, it's not bad, but they do take on those 3 heavyweights in Souths, Penrith, and then that away trip in Las Vegas to the Brisbane Broncos. But that's not a bad start to the year for the Sydney Roosters, in my opinion. Section number 2 of 2024 starts on Thursday night football from Newcastle, the Knights versus the Sydney Roosters. 7 days later, they are back at Allianz to host the Melbourne Storm. Round number 8, the traditional and annual Anzac Day clash at Allianz Stadium, but technically they are the away side for this fixture. Round number 9, they have the Broncos done and dusted for 2024. They do the double. Round number 9, Friday night footy at Suncorp Stadium. And then round number 10, they are back at Allianz to host the New Zealand Warriors. Again, it's very similar to their first section. They are away to Newcastle. They do have a trip up to Suncorp. But you've got teams like the Dragons, and I do think Newcastle Knights are a little bit more beatable this year. Roosters should be a little bit more tougher, sterner opposition. But again, that's not too bad. They only have the one trip to Suncorp, or to Queensland, I should say, and the Dragons have a home game at Roosters' home ground. So not too bad of a section there, and should rack up at least 3 wins in that little part. In round 11, it's the start of back-to-back away games, and their first away game is a trip back up to Suncorp, a part of Magic Round. They're playing on the Saturday, and they are the away side against the Cronulla Sharks up at Suncorp Stadium for Magic Round. 7 days later, in round number 12, they're down in Canberra to take on the Canberra Raiders on Saturday footy. And then in round 13, in what will be an Origin-affected game, Sunday afternoon footy back at Allianz Stadium against the North Queensland Cowboys. Then they finally have their first bye for season 2024, and their third section is rounded out by a CommBank Stadium visit where they take on the Parramatta Eels on Saturday night footy. Again, if Origin is to take Tedesco away from the side, yeah, it does even itself out, but I believe the Cowboys will be representing more in State of Origin, so that could be, unfortunately, a lucky 2 points to the eastern suburbs. Potentially, the Raiders, they're not expected to make the 8 this year. The Roosters against the Sharks at Magic Round. Sharkies, they'll have some scars from that semi-final loss last season, but the Roosters will take a lot of confidence out of that, knowing that they can beat the Sharks. And Parramatta, who the hell knows? But I'll tell you what, Roosters do have a very dominant record over Parramatta. So again, maybe I'm pumping up the tyres too much of the Roosters, but again, that could be a bit of a golden patch there again for the Roosters. Section 4, it starts with 3 straight home games, technically. So the first game of their 3 straight home game stretch is taking place in Gosford, but that would be absolutely nothing to them. They've been doing it for years now, and they are hosting the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs on Saturday twilight. 1 week later, on the Sunday twilight fixture, they're hosting the West Tigers from Allianz Stadium. Then 7 days later, in round 18, they host the St George Illawarra Dragons again from Moore Park, followed by a round 19 bye. And then it is concluded, Section 4 is concluded with a trip down to Amy Park for Saturday night footy. One of those 3 home games is going to be Origin affected, but even so, that's a beautiful little part of the season for the Roosters. With Origin in the rearview mirror, it's all steam, full steam ahead for the run to the finals, for the run to September, and this is what their run to finals footy looks like for the Sydney Roosters. Round number 21, they're back at home to host the Manly Sea Eagles on Saturday night footy. They then have a short-ish trip to Perth, where they take on the Dolphins from HBF Park on Friday night footy. So they play the Saturday night at Allianz, but then they have a game on Friday night, and you can make a case that that is a very short turnaround. Luckily though, round number 23, after their game in Perth, they have their third and final bye. Round number 24, they host the Parramatta Eels on Friday night footy. Then they have a big layoff until they play on Sunday afternoon footy the following weekend up at the Gold Coast to take on the Titans, Sunday 2 p.m. 7 days later, in round number 26, they host the Canberra Raiders on Sunday afternoon football. That is the Channel 9 game. And then they have a short-ish turnaround as well. They don't leave the state of New South Wales, but they do have an away game against the South Sydney Roosters, you dickhead. The South Sydney Rabbitohs on Friday night footy out there at a core stadium. So how many home games do they have? They got 1, 2, 3, and then they've got 3 away games and 1 bye thrown in there as well. Save for the Rabbits and potentially the Dolphins, that could give them a bit of curry. That's still, look man, I'm just going to come out and say it, for a team that is projected to be in top 4, their hardest part to the season is inside that first 7 weeks of 2024, because after that, it's really not a bad draw. They do have at least 4 trips to Queensland this year. They have that trip to Perth, which is a hell of an anomaly in the draw overall for every single club. But really, man, that's not too bad a draw for the Roosters, bro. I can easily see them making the top 4 based off that draw. Hope you're all enjoying the Overlooking fixture, and I hope you all enjoyed the Taumalolo discussion video that I put out yesterday. If not, please go and check that out. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you, take care, adios.